What up, it's your boy Roy Jones Jr. I'm hanging out with my man, Andre Ward. We two Hall of Famers will bring y'all a show called The Hall of Game.
A show where we discuss boxing, sports, life, and entertainment from our view.
How much better than that can you get?
Me and Roy don't always agree, but one thing you will get is a Hall of Fame worth the game.
Welcome back to another episode of the Hall of Game. I'm your host, Andre Ward. Man, I'm yet again without my co-host, Roy Jones Jr. I need y'all to put out an APB on Roy Jones. I know he's traveling. I know he's moving around, taking care of business, but I need him back on the Hall of Game. Y'all have been asking for him to be back on the Hall of Game, and I miss my brother, but I'm going to hold it down until he gets back. We got a great show today. It's a recap of Saturday night's card in San Antonio, Texas at the Frost Bank Center on the PBC pay-per-view card on Prime Video. We previewed this card going into the week, and it's a card that I was very excited about for a lot of reasons. Jesus Ramos Jr. and Shane Mosley Jr. fought for the WBC interim middleweight title. Erislandy Lara fought Johan Gonzalez, who stepped in for Janabek Alim Hanalu because of a positive or adverse finding in his VADA testing. Oshaki Foster fought Stephen Fulton. Stephen Fulton came in 2 pounds overweight, and for whatever reason, the WBC still sanctioned this fight as an interim lightweight title. And then in the main event, we had Isaac Pitbull Cruz against Lamont Roach for the interim WBC super lightweight title. And that, my friends, was a good fight. The fight with Jesus Ramos and Shane Mosley was a good fight for two fighters in similar spaces. I had Shane Mosley Jr. on the Contender Series in 2018. Shane Mosley Jr. is a good fighter with good skills. And believe it or not, he has some of his father in him. You see some of the fast, twitchy type of punches and foot movement. He's a very tough fighter who can take a lot of punishment. I don't know if that's a badge of honor, but it's certainly something that you respect. He did take a lot of punishment in the fight with Jesus Ramos. He never quit. He never stopped trying to win. But when you're taking punishment like that at this stage in your career, when you're trying to get to a championship level, you got to start taking some hard looks at your career and see if this is something that you really want to do, because things are not going to get easier for Shane Mosley Jr. They're going to get harder, but the future is bright for Jesus Ramos. Just a good young fighter who has a great family and a great background. And he's a fighter that does a lot of great things. And I like what I've seen from him so far. And the sky's the limit for Ramos moving forward. And he's looking forward to fighting for the full championship WBC title in the near future. The fight that we were looking for, Erislandy Lara and Janabek Alim Hanalu, wasn't the fight that we got. We said at the top of the show that Janabek had an adverse finding with his VADA testing leading into the fight. Janabek had to step aside as he's waiting for his B sample to come back. I'm going to reserve my opinions until that sample comes back, but that's not a good look for him and his team, as this was the opportunity that he really wanted. Janabek was a guy who passed the eye test with flying colors, and it seems like nobody really wants to fight him. And what he's missing is the namesake or the type of marquee victory to get him in position where guys can no longer duck and they have to fight because there's enough money on the table. This is a huge setback for Team Janabek. If the B sample comes back positive, he's got other issues that he has to deal with, but there's always a replacement in the sport of boxing. There's always a fighter somewhere. He might be sitting on a couch or he might be in the gym and he's just a phone call away. And that fighter was Johan Gonzalez. Johan looked very, very strong and in shape, and he was a tougher fighter than many thought that he would be for Erislandy Lara. Lara dropped Gonzalez in the first round and then ultimately in the last round, but Lara sort of went back to some of his older ways where there's excess movement, not enough punches, and I don't know. You have to give him a little bit of grace, Lara, because he didn't have a lot of time to prepare for Johan Gonzalez. This is Gonzalez's Super Bowl, and this is just another fight for Lara. He was preparing for another fighter and another type of fight, and it's switched in the fourth quarter. That's a lot to deal with, but you do expect a fighter of Lara's caliber and with Lara's experience to make those adjustments. And I think that Lara could have gotten Gonzalez out of there. And he's shown that in his older age, being over 40, I think Lara's 42 years old, that he's willing to stand there more. He's willing to stay in the pocket. And he's surprised a lot of people because Lara's always had respectable power, but he's shown that he's got real power. The type of power that's knocking guys down and then knocking them out. And he showed that early with Gonzalez, and then he showed it late. If you could carry your power late into a fight like that, that tells me that Lara could have did more. He didn't get a great response from the fans, and that's tough because that could stop other opportunities for Lara. There's not a lot of reasons why fighters want to face a skilled, dangerous, experienced fighter like Lara, who's 42 years of age, without some serious reason. And the reason that he's given these promoters and other fighters to step up is the type of fights that he's been putting on, these knockouts and these stoppages, where he's old enough where fighters will take a risk like a Janabek, where, okay, if I beat a Lara, I get this on my resume, man, I got a marquee name now. And I can tell people that I have a marquee name. But if Lara continues to fight those kind of fights at this stage in his career, he may start hurting opportunities for himself moving forward, because it's an easy way for fighters and promoters to step aside and say, oh, he's going to run. It's going to be a boring fight. So I think Lara could have stepped on the gas and really stayed in the pocket with Gonzalez in the midway point in that fight. And I think he really could have he really could have got him out of there, because though Johan Gonzalez looked strong and in shape, he looked like he had been in the gym when he got the call, I didn't see anything from Gonzalez that concerned me for Lara. I didn't see punches or a game plan that made me feel like, Lara, you need to box and get out of here, get your check, get the win, and move on. That's not what I got from Gonzalez. So I don't know why Lara went back to those ways, but I'd like to see Lara stay in the pocket like he was. Y'all know I'm boxing first. That's what I believe in. That's what I was raised on. So I'm not a guy that is quick to call a fighter boring because they didn't stand there and take a lot of punishment. But when you see that you could do more, when you see that there are opportunities, you want to take those opportunities, especially against a late minute replacement, and especially when you're at this stage in your career like Lara was. But winning covers a multitude of sins. He will get another opportunity, and I'm excited to see who Erislandy Lara will get another opportunity against.
Here's a question. If you walked into a stash house full of $20 million, how much would you steal?
That's the question Matt Damon and Ben Affleck have to answer in Netflix's new movie, The Rip. They play a team of Miami cops alongside Tiana Taylor, Steven Yeun, Catalina Sandino Moreno, Kyle Chandler, and Sasha Calle, all trying to decide, are they the good guys or the bad guys?
This movie is an edge-of-your-seat thrill ride the entire time,
keeping you guessing till the very end.
Don't miss The Rip, only on Netflix on January 16th.
I think the fight that I was looking forward to the most was the co-main event, even though the main event was exciting, and that was also a fight that I was looking forward to. It's the O'Shaquie Foster-Stephen Fulton fight, which was scheduled for O'Shaquie Foster's 130-pound WBC title. Stephen Fulton was just coming up in weight from 126 to 130, but fight week, or the day before the fight, he comes in 2 pounds over the limit. He comes in at 132 for a 130-pound limit. And when you look at Fulton's body, to me, he didn't look like he had the cuts and the grooves and the type of body that you want to see from a fighter that's been in a long training camp and that's been making all the sacrifices. I had concerns with Fulton being 2 pounds over because you're moving up in weight. You're moving 4 pounds north of where you just previously were. Not to say that it still wasn't hard for him to make weight, because the misconception is that because a fighter is moving up in weight, that they're still not draining themselves to make that weight, even though it's a higher weight. Fulton gets pretty heavy in between fights. We talked about it right here on the Hall of Game. He said, I like my food. I like to relax after my training camps. I don't like to do much. And I don't know what happened to Fulton in camp. There's a lot of rumors circulating about personal issues or camp not going the way that it was supposed to. I know he had issues making the 130-pound limit, but the question is why? Why was Fulton not able to dial in and make the weight precisely the way he was supposed to. As a fighter, I'm asking, why was his body not in the type of shape that he was supposed to be in? This fight was a long time coming. There was multiple cancellations. There was a lot of back and forth. I don't think it was real bad blood, but it was boxing bad blood. It's competitiveness. You want to fight me for my title. You think you're going to come up and wait and take what I have. Fulton's like, don't take it personal, but yeah, I'm getting ready to come get your belt. They had all of the makings of a great matchup that night. But as the fight unfolded, the fight started out like the script that everybody had written was thought was going to get played out. O'Shaquie Foster, the bigger, more established fighter at the weight, not walking down, but putting subtle pressure on Stephen Fulton. And many believe that Stephen Fulton had to box. He's the smaller fighter. He doesn't punch as hard as Foster, so he better be smart. And that's what we saw in the first couple rounds. But that's not all I saw. I saw the script as it was written being played out, but I also saw Fulton not being confident. And I don't know if that's because of the weight issues, because oftentimes as a fighter, you don't always feel great going into a fight. The goal is for everything to peak: your sharpness mentally, your focus, your physical prowess, your physical body. As you made weight, you want to make weight the right way. You want to put the weight back on in the 24-hour period or less that you have to put the weight back on. You want everything to be clicking. But the reality is even though you have a fight date, things are not always clicking the way that they're supposed to. It didn't look like Fulton was right going into the fight, and he didn't look right early on in the fight. And what I saw was a fighter who had a lot on his mind, who didn't have the best training camp. This is just all speculation and what I'm seeing from my years in the sport. But I also saw Stephen Fulton allowing O'Shaquie Foster, who did his part. He came in tip-top shape. He made the weight, and he did what he was supposed to do. And he actually showed more wrinkles in his game. He was just supposed to be the puncher. O'Shaquie Foster was just supposed to be the bruiser, but he also showed that I can do multiple things, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. But for Fulton, I don't think it was just the training camp. I don't think it was just the weight cut, even though I know that had a lot to do with it. It looked to me that Fulton was allowing O'Shaquie Foster to win a lot of those rounds and ultimately the fight by his reputation. What I mean by that is the script I told you about, right? Foster being bigger, stronger, and even carrying his power late. Foster has late fight, late round knockouts where he's getting knockouts in the 11th and 12th round. I didn't see Fulton taking the chances that he was supposed to take in order to try to get some respect from O'Shaquie Foster. I didn't see Fulton step to Foster in spots the way he was supposed to take some ground from O'Shaquie Foster that he was supposed to. I didn't see that Philly thing, that willingness to risk getting knocked out or risk getting hurt, to put your game plan down, to put your stake in the ground and let the opponent, the fans, the judges, and everybody know that, yeah, I know I'm supposed to be boxing, but I'm gonna get mine too. I didn't see that from Stephen Fulton. I didn't feel that. Like, you can feel that type of energy and that type of mindset when it's being displayed. Like, oh, he getting his respect right now. Oh, he just drew a line in the sand. You saw it with Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez. You see the normal script playing out, Crawford boxing, Canelo Alvarez stalking, but then all of a sudden you saw certain rounds where Terrence Crawford went off script and he drew a line in the sand, and and as a fighter, you know, oh, he's getting his respect. He's sending a message to Canelo and to everybody watching that it's not going to be the way that you think it's going to be. I didn't see that from Stephen Fulton. I didn't see that kind of fight from Stephen Fulton. And it's sad because his corner was telling him all the right stuff. In the first 2 or 3 rounds, you could see that Fulton was still trying to process and figure out how to solve the puzzle of O'Shaquie Foster. But right around that 5th, 6th round, 7th round, in between the rounds, you started seeing Fulton just kind of drift. You start seeing his mind drift. You gotta stay focused in a fight. especially when things aren't going your way. It's very easy to start to give up mentally. You may not give up physically. You may not stop throwing punches, but your mind starts to drift and you start becoming a spectator to your own event. So your coach is talking, you hear him, but you really don't hear him. Your mind is on something else. And that's what I started to see from Stephen Fulton in the middle of this fight. And I think it was the 6th or 7th round. He came out and he started throwing like air punches. Like they weren't reaching Foster, but he just started throwing air punches as if he was like shadow boxing. And that just let me know that this is not going to be the night for Stephen Fulton. I don't know what happened, man. I have a lot of respect for Stephen Fulton. I've stated that on this show and on this platform, and I continue to. I'm not a fighter who sees a fighter have that kind of showing, or a fighter that doesn't show up the way he's supposed to, and then I say, oh, he's trash. He was never anything. That's not me. I have a lot of respect for Fulton, but something went wrong in his preparation. Something was wrong the week of the fight, and something wasn't right with him on fight night. But that being said, some of what was, and maybe most of what was wrong with Fulton in that fight was O'Shaquie Foster. We can't take away from the performance of Foster and the professionalism and everything that he displayed in that fight. He was sturdy. He looked very strong. He looked sure of himself, but he was smart. And I love to see a guy who's known as a bruiser and a puncher and the stronger fighter not abuse what he has in his arsenal. Foster could have easily not respected anything about Stephen Fulton and just tried to walk through him. And maybe he would have got the stoppage. Maybe he would have done better. I don't know. But I like what I saw from Foster. I saw a thinking man that night, Saturday night, against Stephen Fulton. I saw a man who was thinking through his steps and processing his moves. Foster was playing chess on fight night. He wasn't playing checkers. He was thinking 2-3 steps up ahead. And this fight is going to elevate O'Shaquie Foster as a fighter overall, because he's got the toughness. He's got all the stuff. He showed that he got some flavor. He's shown that he's got range to his game. Great fight from O'Shaquie Foster. It's not a good fight for Stephen Fulton. And he's got to go back and he's got to retool and be honest with himself about what went wrong, if anything went wrong in his personal life, in training camp, mentally, if he just didn't believe that he can win. I didn't see a confident Stephen Fulton. You cannot knock a fighter who takes a chance to win and comes up short. But it's tough, and I know that Stephen Fulton's feeling this right now. He didn't put himself in the best position to get that dub. And I don't think he really believed in himself once he got in that ring. Foster was who he thought he was. He may have been even better than he thought he was. And I didn't see Stephen Fulton not one time toe that line and draw that line in the sand and let Foster know you're going to have to earn this tonight. I wish Fulton nothing but the best. Boxing is a sport of second, third, fourth, fifth chances. I believe that he's going to get back to where he was. I'm hoping that he gets back to where he was and that he's able to make adjustments, because everybody's story is different. Some fighters, they don't lose. Some fighters never have the bad night or the bad performance, but it doesn't mean they haven't gone through things. They had their own struggles in their own fights. Stephen Fulton has had his struggles and has had his fights in the boxing ring, but thus far he's always overcame those struggles. And I'm hoping and believing that he'll do it again. And the future is bright for O'Shaquie Foster. O'Shaquie Foster, he's got history with Shakur Stevenson. And his quote after the fight was, "I want Shakur Stevenson." He said, "I've been saying it for the longest, but it looks like he's going to be fighting at 140. So I have to choose either 130 or 135. I'll see what happens and make a decision from there." Excited about the future of O'Shaquie Foster. He's earned the right to be in his position, man. And once again, man, big things up ahead for Foster.
What's going on? It's Barack the Boxing Bully, and we got some heat coming your way. These are fights you better not miss. Jumping on all the action with our partners, DraftKings.
Jake Paul never ceases to amaze me, Barack.
Oh my God, he's fighting a 36-year-old killer, Anthony Joshua, and there's no way anybody sees him winning. You gotta give him credit for that.
A situation where you can get extremely hurt from this man who's an Olympic gold medalist, two-time world champion, has tons of knockouts. The talk is over about how much heart Jake Paul really has.
It's a win-win for him, if you ask me. You're not gonna win, but you're gonna get credit from everybody.
And you're gonna make a lot of money, which no fighter on the planet will turn it down. December 19th is going down. You definitely do not want to miss this exciting, explosive, insane fight. Check out all that DraftKings has to offer, but make sure you use the promo code ATS Fights. The crown is yours.
DraftKings has something for every sports fan in the world. Have some fun and check out all that our partners DraftKings has to offer via the app or the website. Get in on all the action.
Grab your phone, download the DraftKings app right now. New customers, use the promo code ATS Fights. Level up your fight night experience.
The main event over-delivered, though. Pitbull Cruz and Lamont Roach for the 140-pound WBC interim super lightweight title. This fight ended on a majority draw, 115, 111 for Cruz, and you had 113, 113 two times for a majority decision draw. I thought Lamont Roach had done enough to win that fight, but not by a landslide, maybe a point or two. The point that I always make is when a fight is that close, you can't scream robbery if it doesn't go your way, because there are swing rounds that can go either way. There are moments of the fight that judges look at in a particular way. Lamont Roach may be outboxing Cruz for most of the fight, but then all of a sudden, Isaac Cruz has a moment with 10 or 15 seconds before the bell rings, and then all of a sudden, that's the last thought on the judge's mind, and they mark that round for Isaac Cruz. I don't think that's the right way to judge a round. I think the way you're supposed to judge a round is the totality of the 3 minutes, but you have humans sitting across the ring that are judges, and sometimes they like what they like or they see what they see, and it sways them to give a round or two to a guy that maybe you thought or we thought as a viewing audience should have went the other way. I don't think a draw is robbery. I do think Lamont did enough. And I'll say this about Isaac Pitbull Cruz. I like Isaac Cruz. He's a short, stocky, all muscle type of fighter. He's got underrated defense because he is stout and he's short to the ground. He knows how to tuck that chin. He gives you the top of the head because that doesn't hurt as much or put him in as much danger as getting clipped on the chin or maybe getting clipped on the temple. I like his style. He makes everybody work. He pushes everybody to the limit. And I knew it would be no different with Lamont Roach. But the issue that I have with Cruz is Cruz started the fight strong like he typically does. Then he fades or he tries to preserve energy. And then he tries to step it up at the end. Isaac Cruz does that not just because of strategy. It's also because of how he carries himself and lives outside the ring. I don't know his personal life. I say live meaning how he keeps his body. Isaac Cruz is a 140-pound fighter, and I would guess he gets to 170, maybe higher in between fights. This is just off me looking at his face, looking at his body, and sizing fighters up for almost most of my life. He gets really, really heavy in between fights. Some on the internet call that weight bullying. I call that a lack of discipline and a lack of respect for the game. And what happens is when the fight starts, everybody feels strong. Everybody's strong for the first 4 rounds. But 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then down the stretch, that's where you show your conditioning. That's where you show what type of life you're living in between fights, how much or how little you actually respect the sport. Isaac Cruz has to hold and preserve energy because everything that he did to his body in training camp is catching up to him. You cannot strip off 20, 30, 40 pounds and expect to be in tip-top shape and fight for a duration of a 12 round. We all take rounds off. We all take moments in the fight off. I'm saying you take 4 and 5 rounds off where you're doing just enough to get by or just enough to try to steal a round. That's what Isaac Cruz does oftentimes in his fights. and he would be a lot better. Maybe the fight with Lamont Roach wouldn't even be close if he took care of himself a little bit better outside the ring. Cruz, you got to live like a fighter until you retire. It doesn't mean that you can't have moments to enjoy whatever it is you like to enjoy, but you have to stay within your fight range, your weight and fight range, so you don't have to destroy your body completely in an 8-week and 12-week and 4-month training camp. And you see fighters who have weight issues oftentimes. They have long training camps. They have 3, 4, 5-month training camps. They need a pre-camp and they need a full camp. And it's fat camp for most of the camp. It's getting weight off. It's always feeling lethargic and tired. And it's less about game plan and strategy, and it's more about your weight issue. For a championship level fighter, the primary thing should not be a weight issue. You should always check your weight. You should be on a scale multiple times throughout the day in training camp to track how your body is flowing. Man, I just ran. I just lost 4 pounds. So I know, man, I can lose 4 or 5 if I do a 5 or 6 mile run. Man, I just got done working out at the gym. I haven't hydrated yet. Man, I just lost 6 pounds. You start to understand your body by staying on the scale. But you shouldn't have to lose 30 and 40 pounds in training camp, because it's going to come back and it's going to hurt you. And that's what I saw with Isaac Cruz. See, y'all, I don't just look at punches thrown. I look at the things that a lot of people don't see because I've lived it. And those are the things that excite me about fights, or that interest me about fights. It's the fight. It's the fighters, it's the matchup, it's the style matchup, it's the what game plans are both fighters going to implement. But then I've also tracked with the fighters leading up to the fight. And he looks like he's focused. And he doesn't look like he's pump faking. He looks like he's really focused. Like, I got that sense from Devin Haney when he was on the show with me and Roy. And it wasn't any rah-rah that he was doing. It wasn't any one thing that he said, but there was a couple of questions that I asked him about Turkey and about the monetary side of the game, and everything that he said went back to the fight. I said, oh, he's locked in. He's locked in. He wasn't too high. He wasn't too low. These are the things that I focus on. And this is what I focused and saw with Cruz, that when the initial press conference got kicked off, I said, man, Isaac Cruz got a lot of weight to lose. Man, he's gonna drain himself in training camp, and he's gonna make this fight with Lamont Roach a lot tougher than it needs to be. But I like the type of shape that Lamont Roach was in, though. I don't like the game plan that he implemented. When you face a fighter like Cruz, you don't want to bang and fight with him early on in the fight. That's exactly what he wants. Isaac Cruz is the strongest that he's ever gonna be in a fight in the first 4 rounds. That's when you use your jab. You make Isaac Cruz think more than he wants to think. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to throw big shots. That's who he is, and that's what he does. But you don't have to oblige, at least early on. See, people think that when you face an aggressive fighter, when you face a fighter that can punch, that you're supposed to just run from this fighter for 12 rounds. And they employ the mindset that you can't hit what you can't see. That's not really how it's done. You can't avoid a big punch from a real puncher, one that knows how to cut a ring, one that has experience, and one that knows his way around that ring. He's going to land at some point. So it's best that you just make your mind up that I'm going to get hit, but it's not going to be enough. I'm going to be able to take the shot. You can't give in to what Cruz wants for the first 4 rounds. Lamont Roach could have and should have boxed early on. And you saw him trying to box in the first round, or not trying, but you saw him boxing in the first round. But then something shifted round 2, 3, 4, where he's standing there early and he's trading punches with Isaac Cruz at his strongest. That's the point in the fight where the rhythm for Lamont got out. He got out of rhythm at that point, because you start to fight a certain way. And if you're Lamont Roach, it's hard to go back to doing the boxing. If you start fighting, it's hard to go back to doing the boxing. But if the game plan is to box first, get your respect in spots, meaning, oh, you want to rumble? I'll rumble for 10 seconds, then I'm going to go back to boxing. I'm going to do it your way because I have an advantage, because I have you all balanced. So I'm going to attack you. And I'm going to let you know that I will hit you and I'm not afraid, but then I'm going to go back to boxing. It's hard to go to that rhythm when you've gotten into a fighting rhythm. The crowd is involved. You have to weigh that. They're oohing and awing. Now you get hit with a big shot. If you're a real fighter and you got that kind of dog in you, what you think you're going to want to do next? You're going to want to get that shot back right away. Sway the judges, sway the crowd, and the viewing audience at home. That's where Lamont Roach got off. He started to fight Isaac Cruz early and too often. And now this goes from you boxing to now fighting. And I can see the look on Isaac Cruz's face. He loved every bit of it. He loved every bit of it. But what I did love about Lamont Roach, even though I think he employed the wrong game plan, was the heart he showed, the type of conditioning that he showed. You have to realize, given the whole Gervonta Davis debacle and the fight being on, the fight being off, and him trying to find an opponent, he's pretty much been in the gym this whole year. Most of what Lamont Roach posts and talks about is training or who the next fight is going to be. You don't see Lamont Roach sway on a lot of different things. So you kind of get where he's at and what his mind is focused on. And for him, most of this year has been about training. It's been about fighting. And a lot of people, Isaac Cruz is not an easy fight. He's a fighter that when you sign to fight him, you know it's going to be a long night or a short night if you don't do what you're supposed to do. And I never saw Lamont Roach really have an issue with the Cruz matchup. In fact, I saw him excited about it. And I think that both fighters put on a great fight. I think Isaac Cruz, like I said before, could have done himself a service and he would have put himself in position to win this fight by living like a fighter in between fights so he can be the fighter he needs to be in the fight on the night when the lights are bright and everything is on the line. And Lamont Roach, no question about heart, no question about grit, no question about mental toughness, no question about the lifestyle that you live outside the ring. I'm talking about your personal life. I'm talking about your boxing life. No question about that, because you showed us in the biggest moments. Isaac Cruz got a knockdown in the third round. It wasn't a traditional knockdown where you see the fighter hit the canvas, but it knocked Roach all the way back several feet. And that shows you the type of power that Isaac Cruz possesses and what he's capable of. The problem with him is he's not able to keep it up. He's not able to sustain that level of intensity, that level of work rate, or that level of punch count throughout the duration of the fight. If Isaac Cruz dedicates himself more outside the ring and takes this more serious, he's going to be even more dangerous than he already is. And for Lamont Roach, I think that was a discipline thing in the ring where the game plan should have been, he should have implemented the game plan more in a disciplined way early in this fight. If you put the right kind of money in the bank early on, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you hit return, that investment is going to pay you dividends. And then the championship rounds for me are 10, 11, and 12, not just 11 and 12. Then it boils down to who's in the better shape, whose mind is still sharp and working the way that it's supposed to. And then it's going to take some grit, some determination, some heart, because all of us are tired. All of us are fatigued. All of us would love for that final bell to ring, but I want this a little bit more than you. But at least you've established yourself, if you're a Lamont Roach, in a better way on the scorecard. So both fighters could have done something different to put themselves in a better position. So it's hard to argue with the draw. I just don't appreciate the 115, 111. I would love to speak to that judge and have him break that down for me, because I didn't see that kind of fight.